Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Barbados' Labour Minister advised unions to assess their future. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 9th May 2022. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. Colin Jordan, Minister of Labour in Barbados, recently advised unions in Barbados to assess their future. More in this Barbados Today news item.
He made the comments while speaking at a tree planting exercise hosted by the Barbados Workers' Union at its Solidarity House headquarters today. Jordan told the gathering that given major changes in recent months, including those impacting the world of work, the trade union movement will have to ponder its role.
It is a question that must be given some thought. There must be discussion on it. I know there's already discussion locally and as well as globally. But that thought has to occupy the minds of those who work, who understand worker collective action, and those who understand the development of society.
Minister Jordan stressed that even in the face of much societal change, trade unions must maintain their principles.
And in the context of workers' organizations, the world of work, the value of work, some of those concepts, some of those principles that have to remain foundational are things like the right to come together as a group, to bargain, to recognize that there are power dynamics at play. And so the idea of collective bargaining has to remain a foundational principle, even as life changes, even as societies change, even as the world of work changes.
All unions in the region, with their combative stance against employers, need to take note of Mr. Jordan's advice, as if they continue down the same obstructive and destructive path, using workers to force their relevance, employees may find employers using all means at their disposal to protect themselves at the employees' detriment. A new World Health Organization report says almost 3 times as many people have died as a result of COVID-19.
The official death toll from the first 2 years of the coronavirus pandemic is about 5.4 million. But according to a new World Health Organization report, the actual number is around 3 times higher. The UN body said on Thursday there were 14.9 million excess deaths associated with COVID-19 by the end of 2021. Excess deaths are the number of deaths that occurred beyond the number expected in non-pandemic years. One reason for the jump, deaths that were missed in countries without adequate reporting. Even pre-pandemic, around 6 in 10 deaths around the world were not registered, according to the WHO. William Sambori is with the WHO's Department of Data and Analytics.
We do need better data. So one of the reasons why we focus on excess mortality is because we know the testing data is inconsistent across countries. And we know that there are many people who died before they were tested. So we do need death certificate data to ascertain the cause of death attribution in more detail.
The report said almost half of the deaths not counted until now were in India, suggesting 4.7 million people died there as a result of the pandemic so far, well beyond India's count of less than 500,000.
United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson was on Friday last left to reflect on a string of losses in mid-term local elections in England in a test of his popularity after a string of scandals.
Among the shocking, some predicted results, the loss of Wandsworth, which has now gone to Labour, Barnet, that's gone to Labour, and Westminster. Westminster, that since its creation in 1964, has been traditionally conservative. Westminster that has the Westminster Parliament, the House of Commons, the House of Lords. Westminster that has 10 Downing Street, the official residence of the British Prime Minister. The British Prime Minister, of course, where we've had this series of revelations over the last few months, where he's been embattled by Partygate, accused and found guilty by the police and having to pay a fine for a breach of the very strict lockdown rules, the very rules that he mandated for the rest of the country. So that is a big win for Labour in London, but they have much more modest gains across the rest of England.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbados.
Following reports of breaches of some commercial bank and credit union customers, the Barbados Bankers Association have given the assurance that the financial institutions have moved swiftly to take action.
In a statement, the association said the data violation indirectly affected a very small percentage of commercial bank customers and that the breaches did not result from unauthorized access to customers' personal information held by the commercial banks in question. It explained that the breaches involved a small number of online retailers whose websites are used by customers for online shopping. The association, however, assured it is working to ensure data safety and mitigate the novel methods by which hackers seek to gain access to cardholders' data.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Amid the rising cost of living, a leading economist suggests a wage hike is not the best option at this time.
Speaking on this month's Caribbean Economic Forum last evening, Central Bank Governor Cleverson Haynes said government could introduce temporary measures to assist the vulnerable.
We run the danger of trying to have wage increases that are adapting to inflation, which is or to price levels, which are a temporary cycle. And when these things change, you've already embedded those wage increases in, and therefore they're more difficult to reverse. So you need, I think, transfers, perhaps, that are time-bound, so you may be doing it for a particular period of time, so as to be able to allow people to be able to adapt, but it is not a permanent feature of the government's expenditure or tax system.
Noted regional economist Marla Dukeran supports assistance for low-income citizens and pensioners, but she advises that any move towards a wage increase must go hand in hand with increased productivity.
But in the absence of increases in productivity, wage increases that simply reflect inflation and which are completely delinked from performance will only serve to make whatever you are producing uncompetitive over time and drive you out of the market, which doesn't benefit anyone. We have to ensure that when we are negotiating for higher wages, we are also adding higher value.
Jamaicans for Justice, a human rights lobby group, says it is deeply troubled by the recent videos emerging of altercations between civilians and members of the Jamaica Defence Force in Denham Town.
A new round of turbulence erupted on Thursday afternoon as a pregnant woman clashed with soldiers. The second major conflict in the crime-plagued Western Kingston community, which has been under a security blanket for almost 5 years. The latest allegation is the second abuse claim in consecutive days after soldiers were recorded in amateur videos striking a woman and a man amid escalating tensions between civilians and the army. JFJ says it is concerned about the excessive use of violence meted out to residents, in particular women. Regardless of the situation, there are rules of engagement that agents of the state are required to abide by when dealing with citizens, it asserted. The organization is contending that the actions of the soldiers run counter to the very message of the state in reducing violence against women.
A firm experienced in cybersecurity will provide training to the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force with hopes of establishing a training facility on the island. Speaking to reporters at the launch of the National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Expo, Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines explained that the Defence Force will receive training in information technology, cyber technology and cyber security as the government continues its mandate to digitize. TTT News has more.
A firm experienced in cybersecurity will provide training to the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force with hopes of establishing a training facility on the island. Speaking to reporters at the launch of the National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Expo, Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines explained that the Defense Force will receive training in information technology, cyber technology, and cybersecurity as the government continues its mandate to digitize.
Trinidad and Tobago's government put a task force in place to assess the cyber risks of Trinidad and Tobago, and it is out there doing its work as I speak.
The training facility will assist persons to specialize in topics on cybersecurity locally.
We won't have to go to America and Canada and Jamaica to get expertise. We have it in our bosoms at home.
Minister Hines also revealed that his ministry's cybersecurity team assisted Massey Stores when the company experienced a cybersecurity breach, which caused all of the supermarket chain stores to temporarily halt operations.
The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago says the country's short-term outlook is expected to improve this year. But even so, it notes that a significant increase in COVID-19 virus cases could put a strain on this improvement. Sunil Lala of TTT News reports.
Growth in the domestic economy is projected to strengthen, driven by expansions in the energy sector. This according to the Central Bank in its 2021 Annual Economic Survey released on Wednesday. It says activity in the non-energy sector is also expected to improve, following the gradual reopening of the economy since the third quarter of 2021 and the broad-based rollback of restrictive measures at the end of the first quarter of 2022. But the central bank says there are risks to this outlook, including a flare-up in virus caseloads, which it says may elicit a fresh round of containment measures that hamper business activity, curtail employment, and place further strains on available fiscal resources. The central bank also predicts that the industrial relations climate is anticipated to be more tense in 2022 due to the rise in the cost of living. It adds that despite improving domestic economic activity, labor market conditions may remain constrained until virus caseloads are effectively contained and vaccinated rates increase among the working age population. According to the central bank, domestic economic activity remained mostly constrained in 2021, though signs of improvement were evident. It notes that gross domestic product grew by 0.9% during the first three quarters of 2021. The growth, though, mostly came from the non-energy sector, which grew by 3.6%, compared to a 4.4% decline in the energy sector.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's. Quality service, affordable prices.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.